heard about this Shadowgate documentary. It was made by Millie Weaver, who is a she is an InfoWars reporter. She's been there for a few years, and it's talking about a lot of stuff that we already knew about. She's talking about bulk collection, spying, artificial intelligence, programming, data analytics, all that kind of stuff. And it's a huge grift. Ezra Levant, Rebel Media. There's so much to cover. So let's just start first with a couple of the stuff that this is the main whistleblower in this. But the documentary is half truths, and it completely omits Israel's role in the tech dominance and in the spying and in the Five Eyes, and it puts a spin on all of it that Trump is the victim and that Trump isn't involved and that all these people were just trying to set him up and to blame him for all of this. So that's where I disagree, and we're going to get into some of this. But this is PFC, Patrick Berge, Afghanistan war veteran. He's a Trump supporter. We'll see if he still is by the end of all of this. And this is what he says here. He was just on Alex Jones the other day, and basically insulted him to his face to a degree. We're going to play those clips. And he says here, in regards to Millie Weaver's Shadowgate documentary, he says, in my opinion, if Alex Jones had a chance to see the video, instead of it being uploaded and me coming by his studio unannounced after being on the phone with his, quote, contractors being arrested, you'd never have seen it. Jones is apparently upset at Millie Weaver. He's in damage control because Roger Stone's being exposed, Trump's being exposed. This whole Zionist intelligence spying network is being exposed. The Mercers, Rebel Media, all of that. So this is a big claim to say that Alex Jones would cover up Millie Weaver's documentary if he had seen it. A very big claim. And here he is saying, for anyone that questions me, immediately after speaking with Roger Stone in January 2019, I told the Godfather, his friend, biker for Trump friend, exactly what Stone said to me. He said that he was friends with General Jones. It's a high-level guy that's involved with all of these spying companies, and had worked with his son at Dynology, which opened in the year 2000. Here he is calling out Jack Posobiec, a constant figure that I've been exposing in this Zionist propaganda, Cambridge Analytica, Steve Bannon, Zionist Organization of America network. He says, here's Jack sharing, in the future, all news and history will be disseminated by memes. He wrote a book on, I think, 4D chess warfare with memes, and he's former naval intelligence, used to work for Rebel Media, gets retweeted by the president, helped Trump win in 2016 with memes, with their Cambridge Analytica targeted analytics memes. And here is the star of this Millie Weaver documentary saying, Posobiec would know. Shame you didn't ask who was funding your 2A meme project in 2016. You may think what you're doing is unique or somehow helpful, but it's not. You are destroying America's election integrity, literally the core of our democracy that so many died to protect. Now, Jack Posobiec has attacked me on Twitter. His friends, Jacob Wohl and others, have attacked me on Twitter. He worked with an account on Twitter to try to get me banned as well from Twitter. He called me Antifa and smelly when I just stated the obvious, that he's a Zionist propagandist. He's a proud Zionist. But then when I call him a Zionist, he says that I'm being anti-Semitic. So I've done videos exposing him as well. So here's a little bit. This is from, I got this off of John Swin's Expose the Enemy website. Here he has an article. Hasbara campaign on Trump. Cambridge Analytica exposed. This was June 2016. It shows this video here, Cambridge Analytica, how big data shaped the U.S. election. Jack Posobiec denies, says that Parscale did not work with Cambridge Analytica, but we can see here all of these campaign payments to Cambridge Analytica. 312,000 in 2016, $250,000, 5 million. It's in September 2016. So what was that? Just a few months before the election. Another 250,000, another 100,000. But here's Jack in his tweet denying it. We'll play a little bit of that clip here. It's all about Jack. What is this? Who posted this? Channel 4 News, 65,000 views. It's all about Jack Posobiec's propaganda, Cambridge Analytica connections.
It's the battle of big data campaigns, hoovering up masses of personal detail on 200 million voters.
Do you really have a file on every voter in this country?
Yeah. Yes.
And if you just pick one at random, how much would it say about an individual?
A file, we've known this for a long time, even before Snowden. They collect everything you do on the internet and create advanced AI analytical files so they can persuade you, they can predict what you're going to do, all types of Minority Report, insane Orwellian stuff.
You could look and you could look into thousands of characteristics.
A big brother world where your life is captured digitally, then the data analyzed to win your vote.
Nowadays, the campaign is right here. The campaign is right at your fingertips. Here's
Posobiec with a ridiculous looking mustache beard. What is that? Looks like it's drawn on.
And developments here in America are changing elections in Britain and worldwide.
It's a revolution, and a lot of the old guard are somewhat terrified by it.
Philadelphia in Pennsylvania is where American democracy was born, where Thomas Jefferson wrote the Declaration of Independence, and the Founding Fathers signed it in Independence Hall.
Thomas Jefferson later said that the Declaration of Independence was intended to be an expression of the American.
Okay, here's Jack Posobiec with his app going door to door. He worked
Trump
for like
campaigner Jack
Citizens for Trump or something like
the
that.
streets in his Philadelphia suburb, a swing part of a swing state. An app on his iPhone is a vital campaign tool. Pins on screen tell him which voters in which houses campaign bosses think might be won to Trump. And at each address, he feeds in live to HQ what people tell him.
This will go back to a national database that will say, hey, you know, this person in Pennsylvania thinks this way about Mr. Trump or thinks this way about Mrs. Clinton.
So then the national people can direct messages, emails, direct mail to reflect their concerns.
Exactly. Or they could even decide, you know, hey, you know, we've got a lot of people that are on the fence here. Maybe it's time for a rally.
His app includes people thought to be sympathetic to the Republicans normally, but who seem unimpressed by Trump.
So the documentary that they just put out spins it that, oh, Cambridge Analytica didn't help Trump get elected. It was just a booby trap to say that it was working with the Russians and to, you know, as if he didn't completely work with all of these companies to get elected.
Now this one here, 603.
Yes.
What have you got down? What does your list say about them?
Swing.
Swing voters.
Swing voters.
Right.
Trying to get a sense of where people stand in the election right now, if you don't mind answering.
I don't know where I'm standing.
Okay.
In both. I think they're both criminals. But one thing about Trump is Trump. But the thing I didn't like about her is she's more secretive.
She seems to be veering towards Trump, and the details she's given could later clinch it.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like she's going your way. But you've learned a lot
to
about her.
guess,
So what do you do with all that information?
So all that information, that's actually, as we were talking, I was just flipping through the different tabs in the app and dropping in everything I could find. Christian, special needs child care.
Careless, reckless, crooked, putting her interests ahead of national security. Don't let Hillary Clinton do it again.
What Trump's people hear and say on the doorstep is then pushed through the airwaves. And an English firm, Cambridge Analytica, was paid $5 million in September alone to analyze the data for Trump and help refine his messages.
And you know this about every American voter?
That's correct, yes.
Alexander Nick showed me how his firm puts people into groups by psychological characteristics.
So these dots here are the individuals in the state of Iowa that fit these characteristics.
Absolutely. In fact, we can even drill down to an individually resolved level where we can identify, remove the name, but where you've got the name, age, gender, and somewhere close to 4 or
and every post you've ever made on the internet, everything you've ever done. So there's Cambridge Analytica. Mr. Berge here is 100% correct. Jack Posobiec and his whole network, the people he's working with, Cernovich, Bannon, One America News, Rebel Media, InfoWars, and it's completely right. Jack Posobiec is Naval Intelligence. This is the pin he has. Naval Information Dominance Corps lead the way in warfighting in cyberspace. And that's... Jack posted that on his Twitter as well. I've covered him a lot in the past. So I can link below the video on Posobiec for more. You guys want to see more? So next week, let's play a little clip from this documentary, which knowing it was from Millie Weaver, I knew it would be, the deep state's against Trump, and Trump's the only good guy fighting the swamp, and it's not going to mention Israel and all of the Israeli tech spying and cybersecurity dominance. But then what I saw last night, and I was tweeting against it all day about the grift, Ezra Levant's GoFundMe, she raised over $150,000 because she got arrested, and it was completely unrelated to this documentary. It had to do with some kind of quarrel she got in with her mom. But I watched the documentary last night once I saw that it had 1 million views and it was banned from YouTube. And I was shocked to see graphics with Roger Stone, Manafort, Side Group, Cambridge Analytica all being exposed. But then they spin it. It's almost like, it makes me wonder, is this a controlled release? Is this a limited hangout? They're trying to kind of tie up some loose ends and give you some truth that people already know, but then spinning it so that Trump still is exonerated. So we're going to play a little bit from her documentary now. Shadowgate just came out a few days ago. This is from The Great Hack. This girl is in a Netflix documentary.
Data sets. Went to Russia one time while I worked for Cambridge. I visited Julian Assange while I worked for Cambridge. Pitched the Trump campaign and wrote the first contracts. I have an email from one of our senior data scientists that said that we were actually using Facebook-like data in our modeling. The methodology was considered a weapon, weapons-grade communications tactics. Well done, Britt. Looked quite tough, and you did okay with a winky face.
She worked for Cambridge Analytica, and Alexander Nix was the CEO of Cambridge Analytica, which was funded by, or also high level, was Steve Bannon there, Trump's campaign manager, former campaign manager, and also Robert Mercer, the Zionist billionaire that funds Breitbart, Rebel Media, big donations to Trump.
Little emoji.
When we found out that Cambridge Analytica reached out to WikiLeaks and said, hey, can we help? What that means is we've got a Russian intelligence operation underway to illegally influence the U.S. election in Trump's favor. And we've got the data firm paid by the Trump campaign offering operational help to that effort.
Are there any ties between Mr. Trump, you or your campaign, and Putin and his regime?
No, there are not. It's absurd. Yes, and there's no basis to it.
Cambridge Analytica was used to create the appearance that Russia conducted influence operations to help Trump win the 2016 election.
Stone, man. So this is
Fort Davis, McCain, Jones, all of these people have been doing this for, to my knowledge, a decade.
So this is the guy that's calling out Alex Jones on Twitter right now. And did you see there 5308? Let's go to 5308.
Conducted influence operations to help Trump win the 2016 election.
Stone, Roger Stone. So we see Dynology here, General James Jones, who's like the ultimate bad guy in this documentary, and then connected to 3EDC strategic partners. I mean, what is going on? This is either a controlled release or Millie Weaver stumbled into something. And Alex Jones appears to be mad at Millie Weaver right now. He's saying that she pooped on Roger Stone. She should have interviewed Roger Stone, that she's turned anti-Trump and stuff. Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort were proteges with Trump of Roy Cohn, B'nai B'rith, Mafia connected. and going back to Bernard Baruch as well. Paul Manafort was Trump's campaign manager as well, I think, but before Bannon was. In Roger Stone and Get Me Roger Stone Netflix documentary, they asked him, did you get Paul Manafort the job? And by his answer, the takeaway is basically that yes, he was the one that did it. And what do you know? Roger Stone shows up at InfoWars and uses InfoWars to get the conspiracy community to hop on board the two-party paradigm, support Trump 100%, almost with like another version of the QAnon psyop, which, by the way, QAnon, Trump got asked a question about QAnon the other day, and he like basically refused to denounce it. Of course he's not going to denounce it. It's their General Flynn, Jack Posobiec psyop to get controlled opposition, to get everybody to support Trump with this delusion that he's draining the deep state, the swamp, the cabal, when really he is the Zionist cabal.
Manafort, Davis, McCain, Jones, all of these people have been doing this for, to my knowledge, a decade. Of my personal fact witness knowledge, they've been doing this for a decade prior to Trump even running for office. I met with Roger Stone. We were at his table at a speaking engagement that he did in Clearwater, Florida. And I asked Roger Stone at that time, did you work with, do you know Jim Jones? Did you work with Dynalogy? And he acknowledged his relationship and yeah, sure. I did ask, I asked him flat out, I said, did you use the shadow net? Did you know about it? And he's like, no.
Stone, leaving the Trump campaign early on, suggests candidate Trump didn't want his campaign tied to Stone's influence operations.
We really pioneered negative campaign advertising.
Stone does have a reputation for political dirty.
He says that they pioneered negative campaign advertising. Well, Birnbaum and Finkelstein that helped Netanyahu get into power also were involved with that, and they're all in these same networks. More on them a little bit later.
Tricks and influence operations.
I revel in your hatred, because if I weren't effective, you wouldn't hate me.
Manafort and Roger Stone go way back, like from the 80s. You know, like, come on. These people have been through everything together. And, you know, this is why they targeted them. And this is why they went on Manafort for things that were like ancient. It's like, man, no, not even a statute of limitation, not anything. Come on, man, seriously? Nope.
Psy Group and WikiStrat.
See, this is how they spin it, that they're the victims. Not that they're complicit and involved with all of this spying and Israeli connections and Russian connections as well.
Absolutely connected to the shadow net through the owners of the shadow net, through the fact that Psy Group, through Paul Manafort, submitted a proposal to Trump's campaign. Now, Trump's campaign rejected the proposal. I love that man, right? That's why I keep voting for him. Because even when he's given the opportunity to do that, he rejected it.
I think you're going to... Well, he worked with Cambridge Analytica, and who knows, they go by all these different names, and they change names. There's other front companies. They're all kind of doing the same thing. I think I'm predicting that this whistleblower here is going to change his tune. If he's legit, he can't not change his tune. I just sent him followed him on Twitter, sent him a bunch of information now that I saw that he's going at Jones on Twitter.
The Trump campaign must have known the Dems would try to use anything against them. Trump must have...
Oh, it's not Trump colluding with all these companies to get elected and control, brainwash people with their propaganda that they got from data analytics. Oh, it's just a setup to blame him for the Russians. This is the InfoWars spin.
Sense that the offer for influence operations was a honey trap to set him up. Well, do you think that the reason they attached Manafort to Trump's campaign, because that was kind of later, right? They attached him onto their...
You mean Roger Stone? And enough of this, exonerating Trump. Oh, Trump's just surrounded by people. He keeps hiring all these Zionist swamp creatures all around him, and they go, oh, he's surrounded by bad guys, but he's good. Sick of this narrative.
Do you think it's because they were trying to frame up Trump?
Yes, because they failed with their IAA attempt.
Yeah, I definitely would say that Manafort was an asset. Whether or not he fully understood what his role was, they might have lied to him about what their true intentions were.
Oh, I'm sure he just didn't understand.
To throw him under the bus, because two things had to happen. They could not let Hillary win, and they could not let Trump keep his seat, right? So they were trying to kill two birds with one stone, using Manafort to make sure that Hillary doesn't win through IIA, through WikiStrat, through his connections there. And then those same people turning around, throwing him under the bus by somebody who had previously worked with Manafort and understood what he had been doing and what he was doing, and used that to exploit him as a way to hurt Trump.
Since their whole attempt to have him employ a company to help him win and use these psychological operations that the left was using, I mean, they're doing it, we should do it, and he didn't.
And that's in
He
the
did.
Mueller report. That's in the New York Times. There are several instances.
They say that he turned down this one meeting with Psy Group, but he worked with Cambridge Analytica,
where he's rejected the opportunity to take advantage of influence operations, be it IIA supported or just your standard run-of-the-mill influence operations, right? They've rejected that.
And the thing is, people like Roger Stone aren't saints, but they're not demons either. They skirt the outs, and
See, oh, he's not perfect, but he's not a total insider criminal. As if his resume couldn't get any worse.
they're great at what they do. And, you know, you either love him or not. It's like brie cheese. But the one thing that you can be sure of is that he sticks to his principles. And if he's your friend, especially if he's been your friend for 40 years, like he was with President Trump, there's no way he's going to flip on you to save his butt. Ever. Because that's what honest people do.
Yeah, he seems to know how the games in the swamp are played.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, he knows how they operate.
He was actually framed by people that he worked with.
Oh, he was
that
framed.
software was created, you know, by his friend that created the Magic Wheel software, like implemented ShadowNet for the courts so they can, like...
Okay.
I want you to know and I want you to tell.
All right, so more on Stone here now. Interesting that they're exposing Stone in this new Millie Weaver documentary. It reminds me of back in 2008 when Wayne Madsen wrote an article for InfoWars where he said the GOP and Israelis running honey traps. Longtime GOP dirty trickster operative Roger Stone allegedly had a piece in the action with the Emperor's Club VIP to escort service that they used to bring down New York Democratic Governor Eliot Spitzer. The head of the Emperor's Club VIP Club, 62-year-old Michael Brenner, New York judge, arrested him and held him without bail because he's considered a flight risk to Israel. Federal law agents reportedly recovered 2 Israeli passports from the Cliffside Park, New Jersey, where Brenner lived. And they were arrested with $600,000 in cash. He is a former official with the Israeli Tax Authority, so he's an Israeli agent. Brenner laundered his Emperor's Club money through 3 shell companies. And then it says here, according to the Miami Herald, Stone said he heard about Spitzer from an escort from a Miami Swingers members club called Miami Velvet. Stone is known as a swinger. He put out ads in a swinger magazine to have his wife sleep with other men. And so we have Stone connected to this Israeli blackmail escort ring, exposed by InfoWars back in 2008. Back in around this time, Alex Jones was on with Michael Collins Piper, and he said, oh, everybody knows that Israel is the king of blackmail. Israel is the king of blackmail. And then now he just will never criticize them, or very mildly criticize them and just omit everything that's going on. So there's that. There's that on Roger Stone. We have NXIVM. How is former Trump advisor Roger Stone connected to the cult, the NXIVM cult, allegedly led by Allison Mack and Keith Rainier, but really funded by the Bronfman daughters? Edgar Bronfman, the head of the World Jewish Congress, the Seagram's Zionist billionaire dynasty, liquor dynasty. His daughters, that's who was involved with Roger Stone. And what were they doing? Just like Epstein, just like these networks. NXIVM says the cult tried to gather intelligence on enemies, including Schumer. Business Insider reported January 2019, everything we need to know about the Manhattan madam who moved out of the New York duplex she shared with Roger Stone a week before the FBI raided it. You're trying to tell me that Roger Stone shared an apartment with a madam, a female pimp? Explain this. All right, now. Oh, wait, no, we're not going to play this yet. Now we're going to play some. This is Friday when the whistleblower from the documentary, I'm forgetting his name, what is it? Bergie, Look at what Berge has to say on Alex Jones. This is amazing. Shoot. Edit. Audio hardware.
With Gavin. He had
Billy's
finished
husband.
it last evening late, rendered it, and was just going over everything with me. He had just told me that there was going to be a big interview on Monday by somebody with President Trump, and somebody was going to ask President Trump about Shadowgate on Monday, and I said, well, no, they won't. I said, ain't no way in hell someone's going to let that happen, right?
So Trump won't answer questions about Shadowgate and Cambridge Analytica.
And within a couple minutes of me saying that, the police were showing up in Gavin's driveway. Millie met them in the driveway. They explained to the police officers that they were journalists, and they were actually, they were working with the White House. They were just getting ready to release a very damaging document. And, the officer's like, well, I hope that's not true because I'm arresting you, So he was actually nice and considerate of that, but doing his job. And but they said they only had a warrant for Gavin. And I could hear them talking up until and then they loaded him into the car, and he said, hey, could you take my phone out of my pocket? And they took the phone out of the pocket, and they said, is there anybody on here? And I said, yeah, I was listening to it. That was actually
but
somebody.
I saw them telling her get in the car too. Did they arrest her too?
That was after I got off the phone with them.
So, they got her
apparently
too.
They got her too.
You look at the tape,
they
show up, they go, oh, we got another one here. So they're like talking about it. Yeah, that's okay.
But they said they only had a warrant for him. They
told her, I guess you haven't seen this yet. They told her, put your shoes on, you're going to the car.
Yeah, and they identified her she identified as a journalist. That's exactly what happened.
Explain to people, since you're an expert on this, without getting into secret stuff, what's happening and why this is so dangerous for the Deepstate.
Well, my story kind of apparently ties into Tori's story. When I came back to the States in 2015, after really seeing a lot of bad things happening, I filed an IG complaint, and then the IG complaint got crushed. And I was like, what's going on? So every person that I went to through the chain of command, all the way through to my congressman, most people wouldn't even return my call. And so I spent the last several years watching IIA clearly, what were clearly, in my opinion, IIA operations.
You're talking about scientific mind control, propaganda, Mockingbird 2.0 against the people. Totally illegal.
Well,
exactly what
there
Trump's
are good
doing,
things and bad things you could do with it. A lot of it is
exactly what Alex Jones is doing for Trump.
Is completely legal. IIA, as you can see in the policy guidelines for the DOD, which I post everywhere, IIA supports the PAO. Now, they can either do that overtly or covertly, right? So there are numerous benefits that an overt IIA program can help build behavioral and relationships.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You brush your teeth, don't burn your house down, don't smoke crack.
Exactly.
But instead it turns into America sucks, burn down the police station.
Well, if you can, and this is what President Trump's just looking at putting $1 billion into.
Donald Trump is about to put $1 billion into this. Whitney Webb has covered these pre-crime things that they're doing with all these companies like Ehud Barak, and Epstein was involved. Cyberdyne, I think, is called one of them. Who else? Ehud Barak. Peter Thiel is involved with these companies as well. Attorney General Barr is pushing for the pre-crime type of spying capabilities. Trump is involved deep in all of this.
If you can predictively determine if someone's likely to, let's say, go shoot up a school using the same tool.
That's what William Binney talks about, is this can actually pinpoint and predict, instead of surveilling everybody, it picks up the telltale signs and then surveils them. Well, let's explain it in layman's terms and what you think President Trump needs to do 80 days out from the election with this technology being used against loyal Americans and people loyal to the Republic and the government.
Well, every bit of evidence that I've discovered shows that the shadow net, which that's not anything classified, it was called, that's what they named it and trademarked it when they took the DOD weapon that we had developed for the Force Psychological Operations Group and made it commercially available back in 2009 as President Obama's taking office. So when I started reaching out to all these people, I reached out to Judge Jeanine Pirro, spoke to her on the phone. Obviously, it was her. And she responded back, working on this now. I reached out to, and that's right after my congressman had sent a letter to a signed sworn memorandum of record to Devin Nunes's office saying that all the people that were tied to my work on the shadow net are directly hands-on involved in the fabricated Russian dossier, in the and then they in Cambridge Analytica through Wikistrat and Side Group, and then Facebook. So
they kind of fence the shadow net info through those groups, and then compile the dossier.
It's a subprime relationship, right? These companies
but like
need it.
And you were saying earlier when we were on air, but they can also plant things, or your story was saying this. They also use these systems to plant things on people as well, like we saw in the whole Vault 7 stuff.
IIA, Interactive Internet Activities, supports CNO, computer network operations, which is what that would fall under. This is all the military nomenclature. For everything.
So the bottom line is military technology is being used against the American people.
Yes.
You saw it. You've spoken out.
Yes.
You tried.
Military technology. I'm going to show you clips of Alex Jones saying he's working with the military to do this.
To go to all the big fish, which is smart. They're credible first. Well, say what you said during the break. You're like, yeah, I didn't come to InfoWars first. It's just called InfoWars. What?
Here we go. Watch this.
Explain it, because it does hurt my feelings. Explain why you wouldn't come here first.
I'm the pioneer of IIA, basically social media fake news. The last place that I'm going to go is a organization called Information Warfare, right? So, but then as I started reaching out to everybody that's like speaking bad and going against you, for the most part, as I'm reaching out to them, I'm finding that as soon as they find out my story, I never hear from him again.
Sure, but I've got the name in.
Now this was Friday. Now he's tweeting. Just to remind you guys that Alex Jones, if Alex Jones had a chance to see the video, the documentary, you would have not have seen it. He would have put a block to it. And he's saying Alex Jones is a liar. Here, what else has he been saying? Absolute lies from Alex Jones. But he says some more here. Hold on. Shadowgate. Thought he had another one. Okay, there's that one. He says, waiting for an apology and correction, Alex Jones, or show me where I said Stone was running at all PR, asking for anything other than questions to be answered. All I'm looking for is answers. If Alex Jones leaves those lies uncorrected, I'll have my answer about him and Stone. You're getting your answer right now, Bergie. You're right. You're right about that Jones should have been the last person that you should go with. I sent him DMs with a lot of this information, so we'll see if he picks up on it.
InfoWars to expose it. Like we're calling it what we're fighting.
But then I had the problem that, okay, I was working for General James Jones. Our number one partner, and this is 2008, 2009, 2010, our number one partner. Hell, we were McCain's IT security company and social media company during the 2008 primary. We were replaced in a subprime shift with Paul Manafort and Roger Stone, right? So your partner is someone who was who is close personal friends to my boss, Jim Jones, his dad, General James Jones.
I mean, if you needed more evidence that Stone came along and used Alex Jones and InfoWars with all of this Cambridge Analytica to gatekeep and be a Zionist propagandist and get Trump into office and be a 24-hour wall-to-wall coverage Trump cheerleader, lapdog, sell out to the establishment, to the Zionist deep state. I mean, if you don't get it by now, you never will.
And Dynology, the company I worked for, when I'm helping them make these flyers, didn't have any salespeople. And 3EDC.
But explain that to people, because I know that General Jones was involved consulting Trump early on. And I know he has some involvement because Stone goes around and works with all these groups. But
Stone just works with all these groups like Nexium and and Psy Group and all this stuff.
So, I mean, spell it out. What are you getting at?
3EDC.
Because I can tell you, nobody's calling me up from the CIA or General Jones and none of it telling me what to do. I mean, I'm literally doing whatever I want.
And that's not how it would work. What we would do is we would use an...
What about when that Mossad agent visited Alex Jones and told him to stop connecting 9/11 to Israel? And he essentially did.
Organization like InfoWars using you as an asset, whether you know about it or not, is completely irrelevant. If you have the clients that you have, your demographics fit a very, a target-rich environment for IIA, right? So naturally, and just to prove...
No, but understand the chicken or the egg. I chose that name, and to do that,
he's calling him out on his own show.
Yes, but look at...
It's kind of if you're going square dancing, you dress up in a square dancing outfit. I mean, if you want to play golf, you get your golf clubs.
Oh, trust me.
I mean, I went to the golf course.
Trust me.
I'm trying to affect this with truth instead of sneaking around.
Yeah, no. I've come to the conclusion that you're like, ironically enough, you're like the one person in media that I could trust.
Not anymore. Not anymore. He's calling him out on Twitter today, a few days later. Didn't take long.
That's why when she was arrested, when Gavin was arrested, they didn't tell me to come here. I came here on my own.
Well,
remember, like he said in the tweet, he showed up unannounced. Otherwise, this might have never happened. He's talking about Roger Stone and exposing a lot of it. Jack Posobiec. This 2016 timeframe is when Alex Jones popularized Jack Posobiec and Mike Cernovich, who are involved with these same networks, these same people.
That's the thing is, I was like, Millie, you said this would be done last week. Then it'd be Wednesday, Thursday. You're acting all weird. You never do this. She's like, oh, they've got my phones. They're following me. And he's in town, Patrick Berge. And I'm like, well, he's a good guy. I want to interview him. But you got to set this up. You got to send me clips. I want to promote it. And then she was like, oh, they're after me. You got to call me this morning. I was like working out. I'm like, oh, Millie's paranoid. And then now this happens. So now I'm kind of like, okay, I don't know what's going on.
It's funny. Now he says that Millie's paranoid, but then he claims, oh, she was hanging around with all of these real spies, and that I told her, I warned her, what you're doing is really dangerous. And now he's saying that she's just being paranoid.
Right? So that's where we're at. I can't trust anybody in the media. Dan Bongino, Sarah Carter. Sarah Carter sent me...
Well, here's the deal. Bongino is scared.
Making excuses for Bongino. Bongino is a Trump government agent. He was a former Secret Service. He's a Trump propagandist. I first learned about Bongino watching him on Alex Jones. He used to be a regular guest.
They broke in his house. He asked me not to tell people that, but they did a bunch of stuff to him, and his wife can't handle it.
Well,
I mean, look, I have guests on that said 3 years ago, 5G in a study causes people to have breathing problems and lowers oxygen. It's a mainline study. They called his wife and said, we'll cut your head off. We saw you in the front yard with your 2 kids and the dog 5 minutes ago. We're going to rape you to death. The doctor won't come on now. They threatened to murder his wife. They were watching her. So at a certain point, Bongino, okay, tough guy. He can't handle it. So
yeah,
he's not a bad guy. He just, his wife can't stand them breaking in their house every week.
Well,
not a bad guy. He just got threatened, and now he's sold out the country, and he won't talk about the Zionist cabal takeover, hijacking the country.
That's what they were doing, right? Breaking in his house all the time because they thought he was giving me info. I got it from other Secret Service that Hillary was in a black ambulance and was falling down all the time. And it was Millie almost caught her on tape in Ohio. Then 2 weeks later in New York, she fell down.
I don't know what his justification might be.
I'm just saying to say, oh, Bongino didn't have me on. I don't. It's not because he's bad. Fox tells them the NRA would tell them who they can have on.
Well, he goes on to say that a woman is a Fox News anchor that worked for these companies with Jones. General Jones.
It wasn't.
You understand that all those guys are good people.
It wasn't about being.
I mean, take Judge Napolitano. He's totally blackmailed. It's not anything illegal he's doing, but he's blackmailed. Why do you think he's anti-Trump?
Remember when Jones years ago, Israel are the kings of blackmail. He said it twice. I've played the clips many a times. Israel are the kings of blackmail, and now he won't criticize Israel. Do the math.
I'm not blackmailable because I don't do anything bad, and I don't care whatever they make up. But anyways, I don't want to get back into me. It's just that we're a prototype of how to defeat this.
Yeah, and it's a much bigger story than what I can explain here in a few minutes. That's for sure, right?
But everything. You got 30 more minutes. So just, come out the next 30 minutes. What else are you going to get off your chest?
So everything that brought me here today is pretty much in this video that she's putting out. I didn't know where to go, right? Because everybody that I thought I could trust turned around, and for whatever their reasons, all right, chose to just cover their own ass or whatever, right?
Everybody keeps trying to keep their head down, but a world of people with their head down are not even humans.
Yeah. I enlisted in the Army at 39. Our country, we're destroying the integrity of the election process, that's for sure, which is the core of our democracy. But I would argue, and so do a lot of people, that we're actually destroying humanity in the process.
And again, explain in layman's terms what this system does, how it manipulates minds, how does it control media?
Well, the same thing we indicted the 13 Russians for, right? Fake personas. One person could be 5 different people. One analyst could be 5 or 10 different personas.
Sock puppets, megaphones.
One person can be 5 to 10 different fake personas in a social media chat room, right? And he can be arguing with himself, sharing links between his multiple profiles, which helps both increase the search engine optimization.
The Hasbara and the bot activity and the propaganda and the disinfo and the comments is outrageous online.
Increases trending and increases legitimacy.
So we're talking about election meddling type stuff.
Well, we're talking about anything.
It can amplify whatever you want. It's artificial.
It's artificial, right? So they understand how people will reflexively behave when you put a certain...
The Smith-Munt Act, they're allowed to do this now. They talk about that in the documentary a little bit.
Stimulus or certain information, right? So if we understand how people are going to behave, and we collect enough data on them, and like ClearForce, which is a product of Shadow,
like built from its relational database core. ClearForce.com, owned by General Jones, owned by General Hayden, and some of the top people with the biggest credit reporting agencies and such on ClearForce.com, right? So that was built from the core. That was built from taxpayer-funded DoD weapon, which is used to determine whether or not you lose a job that you currently have or get a job you're applying to. Now, how does it do that? It says right on their website, it builds predictive behavioral models that determine whether or not you're predictively likely to steal or leak. It's a minority report. But instead of the precogs, you've got Jones and Hayden back there programming algorithms. So what if they decide to, say anybody who listens to Alex Jones, we don't want working at our company, or anybody who voted for Barack Obama, we don't want, because it's not about politics.
It's an incredibly dangerous discriminatory system. So we're worried about black versus white. This is AI versus everybody.
Oh, it's far beyond just like fake personas on social media.
It's total information awareness, total information control.
Yeah. And
remember total information awareness? Total information awareness. Wikipedia. Oh, total information. Where is the... So it's a real thing, total information awareness. But there was a logo. Here it is. This is the logo. Total information awareness. Literally. The Illuminati all-seeing eye watching over the whole world. The eye in the sky.
See, like right on their website, they show that this company, Centricus, a UK financing firm, invested billions of dollars into ClearForce. And then the very next month, you can see that this China-owned firm invested $15 billion into Centricus.
China's got lots of tech business deals with Israel. There's tons of articles out about that. The match made in heaven is what Netanyahu, how he described Israel and China's tech relationship.
And then you can see that same month, General Jones partnered with Facebook through Atlantic Council, as God is my witness, Alex, to restore election integrity worldwide. And I kind of think that people need to have a discussion about that because, but nobody will listen. Nobody would hear me. And Millie and Gavin did, to their credit. And I warned them. I said, you know, this isn't going to be good. There's a reason that someone as big as, you know, built-wise as Bongino is afraid of these people.
Well, that's right. And also, again, Trump wants to get rid of this, but it's so incestuous. Both parties are so heavily invested and involved. That's why it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. And again, like you said, it's wedded to communist China. It's got to be.
Oh, it's connected to China, not anything about Israel, and Trump wants it to stop. Yeah, sure, Jones.
Cut down.
Here, a little bit more.
We'll talk about Trump. What does that mean? What are his weak points? What should he do?
I honestly don't know. You know, I think we need to literally all, like I said, take a mulligan, have like a SALT level, you know, strategic arms limitation treaty on IIA, because everybody, you know, the Democrats just focused on Russia doing this. But
that's their distraction from them with true weaponized.
But
Russia
as someone
Israel.
who worked for 3 years in IIA with the Department of Defense, I mean, they're like the least that I worry about.
I was about to say, we're not defending the right, but they're a red herring. Who's most powerful when it comes to this type of propaganda and cyber warfare?
Israel.
I would say probably General Jones. America, domestically.
Roger Stone connected?
Israel, extremely powerful.
Israel.
Right? But also directly tied to...
Hear him cough? What was that?
Also directly tied to General Jones through Wikistrat and Joel Zamel, who I believe Wikistrat is actually WikiLeaks. I believe
Wikistrat is WikiLeaks.
I believe Psi Group is actually ISI, the name of our relational database. That's actually how we do it.
And why do they keep Assange in jail when it didn't come from the Russians? It probably did come from General Jones. That's the word I was told back during the campaign. And then they tried to blame Roger and I can tell you, Roger did not have these high-level connections, you think. He couldn't even get the time of day from Julian Assange. But General Jones, I know, was involved at those levels from what I've seen.
Okay, ready to catch Jones in a lie? Let's play that again. He's saying, oh, well, they have Julian Assange is arrested, and Roger Stone isn't involved with any of these high-level people.
He couldn't even get the time of day from Julian Assange.
Okay, now watch this. This is Alex Jones confesses to WikiLeaks collusion, 2017.
They were going to probably kill me or arrest me, and I was shown all the data transmissions, all the information. I was shown WikiLeaks, all of it, before it was even, they're going to subpoena me. They're coming after me right now.
He was shown WikiLeaks before it was released, huh?
And we decided that there was something.
This is Steve Buchenek saying he and his people, his deep state. By the way, Steve Buchenek is a Trump shill. He's shilling for Jared Kushner. He's been coming on Alex Jones's show for over a decade. He gives you some hard truths, but then he always puts spin at the end. He is known for psychological operations. So now we have psychological operations. Steve Buchenek. This isn't me saying this. Jones, he's does psychological operations, and he works with the CIA, and he works with Israel, and wait till you see his pedigree too, his lineage. And then now we have Roger Stone as well connected to these psychological operations groups.
And we decided that there was something we had to do in order to save the Republic. So we initiated a counter coup through Julian Assange, who's been very brave and really quite formidable in his ability to come forth and provide all the necessary emails that we gave to him in order to undermine Hillary and Bill Clinton.
There you go. How did Steve Buchenek not get called in to be interrogated by Mueller? How is he not in the news being attacked? He just said we gave the documents to WikiLeaks. This same Alex Jones, Zionist, Breitbart, Rebel Media, Zionist Cabal Network.
Do you know which agency leaked the information to Assange? Because this is being...
I don't want to identify it. Do I know? Yes. Do I want to identify it? No. And the reason for that has to do with my long-standing
I understand. So what about the word, though? If Hillary really wants to push, there's going to be a press conference of a bunch of different agencies.
Well, In terms of what? Their agency?
Well, people just coming out and saying, I released it, I leaked it, I did it.
Okay, well, that's their prerogative, but I do not want to reveal who and with
I
whom
totally
I deal with.
I totally understand. Well, let me say this.
That will not happen.
Okay, that will not happen, he says. And a little bit more from this interview here.
But General Jones, I know, was involved at those levels from what I've seen.
So those questions that you ask are all questions that I've been trying to get.
Remember, Trump's like, I love WikiLeaks, release it all. And then he leaves Assange there. I don't like that. He did the right thing, getting Roger clemency. Why do you think he's not helped Julian Assange?
I don't know. These are all questions that I'm trying to get answers to because
Maybe because Julian Assange knows something and they don't want him talking to anybody.
I know all the people that were involved with the Shadownet are all directly involved in that. General Jones and Michael Hayden are on the board of directors of Wikistrat. Wikistrat was directly connected, is owned by Joel Zamel, Psy Group Wikistrat. They were both tied to the Cambridge Analytica.
They're all tied. A great resource for this is John Swinn's website, Expose the Enemy. Let me show you guys this real quick. Tons of research here. Here is, you can go up Israel, Unit 8200, Technion, Talpiot, Israeli tech domination, Israel and high tech, Israel and China, networks, Trump honeypots. He has one with these graphics, all these little facts about all the people in the graphics. Incredible research here by John Swinn. ExposeTheEnemy.com. I'll put the link in the description. There's so much. I could do hundreds of hours of videos on all of these connections, and he's been talking about this for years. This isn't like a new thing that Millie Weaver came out with this documentary, but seeing this star whistleblower in the documentary turn on Jones and expose Posobiec and Cambridge Analytica, it's promising, and it's a positive thing to a degree. Has a silver lining. A little bit more.
Scandal where Facebook again got fined $1 billion and then turned around and partnered with these subcontractors to Cambridge Analytica to what? Restore election integrity worldwide, right?
So they bring in the bad guys, the fox guarding the hen house, to protect the elections. Really, they're the ones that are infiltrating everything and spying on everything. And I remember John Swinn at Expose the Enemy had an article about showing like Facebook and Peter Thiel and them promoting Ben Shapiro. And I think these all these same companies were involved in that. If I can get the link, I'll put that down in the pinned comment below too.
So these are questions people need to ask and get answers to. Because as far as I'm concerned, Zuckerberg lied in front of Congress, and he needs to explain why.
Well, that's not your opinion. All of them have lied in front of Congress. He needs Google goes, we don't track any user ever with a phone. It's like saying, and birds don't fly. I mean, it's like, what? I mean, how do they get away with that? Congress knows all this. What is it's?
Again, I try not to speculate outside of what I actually know, but these are all the questions that have brought me here today and brought me to the other people that I've tried to get information and spoke to. I had no idea that, because I spent like about 7-8 years overseas. I had no idea when I came back to the States that these tools that we had pioneered to use against our adversaries had just been commercially sold politically throughout our country on both sides. I had no idea the depth of what's going on. Real quick, the vice president of Jones Group International, Jillian Turner, is a Fox News host. She was a Fox News host while she was vice president of Jones Group International. Jones Group International is owned by General Jones. Jones Group International owns the Shadownet. Right. And she's a Fox News host. Does she profit from that? I mean, people need to understand that they have put assets. I mean, this is what I'm.
And by the way, I'm not defending General Jones or anything.
Notice how he's talking about assets and he interrupts and says, oh, I'm not defending. Every time he says, oh, I'm not defending Israel. And then he goes on to defend Israel.
These people what you're saying is on record, but I don't want to get tunnel vision here. You know, Google and Facebook and Twitter and all these other groups have their own similar systems. And so when they do partnerships, it's because they're all trying to get more data on the other one. And that's why, like, China and Huawei, it's always scoop up more and more.
Oh, yeah, China. That's who we really got to worry about. Nothing about Israel. It's China.
Well, I'm going to try to find out what's going on with Millie Weaver, who got arrested along with her husband about 3.5 hours ago. We've already played the video here. She is a contractor with InfoWars. She does her own reports, but we're a sponsor of hers. And she does reports for us. But she was making this film with some other whistleblowers and people, and she's been arrested. That should be big national news, but of course it won't be, because this is the new climate in our country. Literally barefoot with her children in her house this morning, and this happened. Patrick Berge, I really appreciate you spending time with us today. If people want to contact you, or how do they do that?
My Twitter is at PFC40book.
At PFC40book. So PFC40book, this is his account. I sent him some messages, some DMs. His DMs are open. Let's see if he's tweeted anything else. He hasn't tweeted for 2 hours about Roger Stone and Alex Jones. I wonder. I asked him to come on. I'd love to have him come on and go over some of this information. I sent him a video that I'll show you guys here in a minute. But let me. You guys should watch that whole Alex Jones interviews too. I played most of it, but so this is how it started. This was Friday. Adon Salazar, he's a reporter for InfoWars. He says, breaking, Millie Weaver arrested, claiming a grand jury has indicted her. He says, I was literally about to break a huge breaking news right now. Here's Ezra Levant steps in. He works for Rebel Media. He's the founder of Rebel Media. He says he's a proud Zionist. He says, I just spoke with Millie's coworker and with her friend Tor, and they have both given me their permission to set up a GoFundMe on Millie's behalf to pay for her inevitable legal fees. There's no big legal fees. 100% of proceeds go to her. Please help. This is Mark Dice has been promoting all this stuff too. This is what first they started. It was 15,000, raised 15,000 or 20,000, and then they met that goal and they upped it to 50, and then they upped it to 100. Now it's $162,000 she's raised, and they upped the goal to $175,000. Incredible. Ezra Levant says, I just spoke to Millie Weaver. She sounds good, and she got lots of fighting spirit in her. She passed on her generous thanks to everyone who contributed to her crowdfunding campaign. I'm now working on transferring the funds to her. Thanks, everyone. And I said, free documentary promotion and $150,000 for a weekend in jail. Sounds like a great deal. She couldn't have paid for better publicity and promotion of her documentary than all of this arrest coincidentally happening on the same day. And there's speculation that maybe she knew the arrest was coming, and she timed the release of this documentary. Or it really is Trump's people, and all these powerful groups didn't want this getting out, but they couldn't be that stupid, because Streisand effect, it made this more popular and a bigger story than if they would have just ignored it and suppressed her. But they are censoring it as well on YouTube. But I said, this was back the 16th, so yesterday. If it comes out that Millie's arrest had nothing to do with her documentary, will she return the $100,000 in donations? Angelo John Gage made a funny one. He said, emergency legal defense fund for Adam Green. He took a screenshot of hers, said it was created by Sheldon Adelson as a joke. Pretty funny. And then here it is. Mark Dice says, update, Millie Weaver's arrest had to do with a previous domestic dispute with her mother that occurred several months ago. Her mom purportedly did not want to prosecute and is upset she was arrested for what she considers to be a minor incident that was already resolved. The arrest had nothing to do with her documentary, but family drama and breaking a cell phone. She got out on $20,000 bail, so I think she had to pay $2,000, if that's correct. That's what I saw. So she is very lucrative. John Swin, Expose the Enemy, says, why is this fraud begging for money when his operation has been financed by billionaires such as Robert Mercer, who coincidentally financed Trump's campaign, Robert Shillman, and Nina Rosenwald, all from the Gatestone Institute. How interesting is this now? Robert Mercer, who funds Rebel Media. Watch this. Robert Mercer, Rebel Media. Robert and Rebecca Mercer. Rebel Media produced anti-Muslim propaganda with foreign group funded by Trump's donor. Ezra Levant's Rebel Media partnered with foreign group bankrolled by Trump's biggest donor, Adelson's his biggest donor, billionaire Robert Mercer, who's a Zionist. This is where Jack Posobiec used to work, Lauren Southern, Laura Loomer. Millie Weaver was wearing a Laura Loomer shirt when she got arrested. And who else? Faith Goldie, Gavin McGinnis worked there as well. So, what are the coincidences that Ezra Levant does the GoFundMe to raise $175,000? He's funded by Robert Mercer, and Robert Mercer also funds Cambridge Analytica. See, where's a Cambridge Analytica, the shady data firm that might be a key Trump-Russia link. Call it Israel link. Paul Manafort, Steve Bannon's involved with Cambridge Analytica as well. And we have Mercer. So the documentary, Millie Weaver's Cambridge Analytica, a company created by Robert Mercer. He also funds Breitbart News, Trump's biggest Zionist, that was founded in Israel, in Jerusalem, to be unabashedly pro-Israel. Jerusalem, Breitbart Jerusalem. They literally have it in their logo. Let's see. With Netanyahu. They went over and founded it with Netanyahu. Former Breitbart reporter gets hired by Netanyahu to be his advisor. This guy, Aaron Klein. Owen Schroyer listens to him. And Alex Jones had him on as a guest as well. So Cambridge Analytica, funded by Robert Mercer, is also funding Ezra Levant and the GoFundMe. Pretty shady. Here we have Millie Weaver. She was a failed actress. Here she is in front at the Los Angeles Jewish Film Festival. Here is, oops. Shoot, I thought I had. All right, we're going to have to go back. She's also always shilling for Laura Loomer. So now this is what I sent. You know what? I have a couple other things I want to show. Let's show these first. This is Rick Gates sought online manipulation plans from Israeli intelligence campaign. I meant to show this too. Roger Stone Jr., who claims he's a Christian now, carries a Zohar special pocket-sized edition from the Kabbalah Center. Roger Stone Jr. shared on his Instagram, "A supporter gave me this tiny book. I carry it with me always. I pray it protects me from the fake news media who are smearing me and purposely misinterpreting everything I say." Here is Steve Ben-Danoon from Israeli News Live talking about his experience meeting Roger Stone. Listen to what he says.
Process. But at any rate, Roger Stone was arrested this morning, and of course I remember when we were invited, Israeli News Live was invited to cover a Trump rally, and it was kind of interesting. Never got to do that before. Roger Stone was the guest speaker, the keynote speaker at that meeting outside of Orlando. And of course, when I met him personally, it was interesting because he makes the very odd statement as he whispers under his breath. He says, "I'm a hardcore Zionist, and so is President Trump."
Roger Stone told, because Stephen's Jewish, a Christian Jew, says Roger Stone told him he's a hardcore Zionist. Him and Trump both are. How about that? Now, Robert Mercer, the big data billionaire, waging war on mainstream media with links to Donald Trump. Steve Bannon, who's also on the Trump campaign. The right-wing U.S. computer scientist is at the heart of a multi-million-dollar propaganda network. And then we have, the Rick Gates, the Mercer family, which gave significantly to Trump's presidential campaign. Also the Koch brothers. Let's see, get rid of that. This is the meeting. Mr. Zamel from Psy Group met with Donald Trump Jr., George Nader, an emissary from the ruler of the United Arab Emirates. That's a coincidence with the UAE, with the big Israeli relationship going public this week. They were there. And Eric Prince, founder of Blackwater, the military contractor, who his sister, Betsy DeVos, or his wife, I can't remember now. I always get it mixed up. Who is the Department of Education. They're all involved with the CNP, the Council for National Policy, just like Jerome Corsi, who was hired at InfoWars. Eric Prince and Blackwater also trained Project Veritas, James O'Keefe and Project Veritas, to a Blackwater Project Veritas. They're on Project Veritas, where Laura Loomer used to work as well. And they were trained by Blackwater to be spies. Now, this is what I sent Berger or Begley. I keep getting his name mixed up. Jeez. What is it? Berge. This is what I just sent to Berge. Is Alex Jones a government agent? Because he basically said to his face, remember, he said to his face that you're information war. You're partnered with Roger Stone. Now, come on. What am I doing here? Get rid of that. This is what I sent him. Alex Jones bragging, admitting, confessing about working with the military, working with psychological operations Steve Buchenek to be a deep state stay-behind network to help Trump, to be a propagandist for Trump. And also I wanted to note, Jones for a long time has been, there's evidence linking Alex Jones to Stratfor, which is another intelligence, private intelligence company, I believe based in Austin, Texas, near him. There's evidence that they have Alex Jones emails on their list that were leaked, and also Jones took a photo in what looked like in one of their offices in front of a map, and I believe there might be other connections as well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. But here's Jones bragging about his basically being a government propagandist for Trump.
You know what? The public deserves to hear this and to get it straight. Now, how did you get Donald Trump on your show 3 times prior to the election? How did you pull that off?
All right. I never tell this on my own show, and this will probably end up being news tomorrow, but you deserve it. I know folks that are part of Delta Force, and I know people that are part of Covert Action.
Covert Action, Delta Force, Tip of the Spear. Oh, what is? Hold on. Special Operations Command out of Florida. Oh, this are whistleblowers from Clearwater, Florida, too. Interesting.
I know folks that are part of Delta Force, and I know people that are part of Covert Action in the Defense Department and the CIA. And quite frankly, they've given me authorization to talk about this. I have never been in the CIA. I have never been part of covert operations, but I was basically contacted by groups inside the Special Forces operations in Florida, inside breakaway groups inside the Central Intelligence Agency, and groups basically.
Psychological operations, Army out of Florida, again, the tip of the spear.
Behind American industry that wanted to defeat the globalists. They're
tasked to work with foreign nations and now America domestically to induce or reinforce behavior favorable to U.S. objectives. The, what is it? Army Special Operations Command is Psychological Operation Groups, PSYOPs. Alex Jones was admitted to being contacted by PSYOPs groups waging unconventional warfare and counterinsurgency, psychological operations.
Plan to bankrupt America. And so they told me that they were advising Trump on the globalist takeover, and that they understood from their demographics and their studies that we actually had, conservatively, 15 million people a week.
Israeli intelligence company formed venture with Trump campaign firm Cambridge Analytica. Side group is owned by entrepreneur Joel Zamel, who has been questioned by special counsel investigators. And it's funny right there, Jones just said that, oh, they were trying to bring down America. He literally says, I played the clip, I'll play it if I can find it here on the fly, that, oh, the Rothschilds are backing Trump and they want to bring wealth back to the people. Yeah, the Rothschilds and the Israeli lobby are saving us. That's literally the type of nonsense propaganda that Alex Jones has been putting out.
Visiting Infowars.com, and tens of millions watching our videos, and that they had briefed the president, or now then candidate Trump, and that they wanted to attempt a counter coup against the globalists.
But this is what got Donald Trump to say, I got to be on this guy's show?
Donald Trump was advised by the Special Forces Command out of Florida. They said
to go on your program.
I mean, that's who actually, let's just say it, the enemy already knows all this. Let me just say this, everybody listening knows I'm telling the truth.
Tip of the spear.
Special Operations Command in Florida, the Delta Force, Army, Black Ops, Army's the oldest thing in America. It's before the Constitution, anything. They said, sir, you need to go with Alex Jones, and you need to rally the troops. And
this whole documentary is about the Army and PSYOPs and psychological operations working for Trump. I mean, this is Alex Jones. There's no better illustration of what we're talking about here than Alex Jones.
And they briefed him. They showed him the documents, and they said, "We need you to run." And the Delta Force basically asked Trump. Delta Force, founded by General Boykin and Schumacher and people like Dr. C. Buchenek of psychological operations of the CIA.
Did you just hear that? He's working with Steve Buchenek, psychological operations in the CIA. He admits to it.
General Boykin and Schumacher and people like Dr. C. Buchenek of psychological operations of the CIA. They basically delivered the message to Trump with all the dossiers and all the proof of what was happening. And he just said, "You're highly recommended." All I can say is we're going to be talking a lot more because he was being briefed by top generals. I'm not going to say the name on what we're doing. And it's not that I'm even special. I'm willing to say this.
General Jones, like in the documentary Berge was asking about, was it General Jones?
I'm willing to do this. I wasn't directed by anybody. I was just aware of the operations. I was studying it. As you know, you're a Navy guy yourself. And we just did what we had to do. We did a counter coup against them. I'd say 90% of the CIA, Defense Intelligence, military.
Who else is naval intelligence? Jack Posobiec.
Special Ops is behind us. George, you're getting the absolute data dump right now.
So there's a real war going on in the elite right now. Don't think Trump just did this on his own. He was recruited by patriots and U.S. intelligence agencies, for a fact. Trump was recruited by the U.S. Army. That's a big secret, but you deserve to know what the Democrats already know. You deserve to understand what's really going on. That's exactly what all our sources from the FBI and the Pentagon, which means the CIA connected Pentagon, that's special operations, that's what they told us. And these are the good guys that continue to give us good info. It doesn't mean the whole thing's good. InfoWars is the tip of the spear, the tip of the spear. Oh, Alex Jones is wrong about Anthony Bourdain. Hey, Joe, I talked to the people that were there in the production at the highest levels. They're involved in the Pentagon, everything else. I know all about it.
Anthony Bourdain was tweeting about Black Cube working with Weinstein. Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, who works with Peter Thiel and Epstein and Carbine in these networks. Elon Musk, Jared Kushner, and Kanye West.
Elon Musk. I mean, Joe, I'm not going to tell you, who I talked to yesterday or who I talked to this afternoon. So just let's quit pretending that we aren't the tip of the spear.
Tip of the spear. Is that code for something? Is tip of the spear code for Alex Jones's psychological operations command?
Let's quit pretending that we aren't the tip of the spear.
The tip of the spear. The tip of the spear.
The tip of the spear. The tip of the spear. So it's behind enemy lines, resistance fighters, carrying out total resistance operations using HUMAT and using covert action. Dr. Buchenek, again, I mean, you don't do a lot of other interviews. You've been nice to come on my show for 15 years. It's on record with General Boykin and with Schumacher. You helped found Delta Force, Black Ops, ran psychological warfare, overthrown 8 countries.
Okay, now they're overthrowing America. Look at this. Overthrowing countries. You work with Delta Force. Psychological operations. This very likely could be Alex Jones's handler. Him, and then maybe Roger Stone came along. Who knows all the connections he's got going.
You're the Jack Ryan character, co-wrote books with Clancy, Hollywood producer. You've done it all. Psychiatrist, MIT scientist, military officer, all that secret, obviously, in your history. But here you are saying you represent the intelligence community, and I checked with people, generals, colonels, they go, absolutely, Buchenek's on target. You're one of the foremost psychological warfare guys ever. You got the Camp David Accords passed. You're credited for running those, the only successful court ever.
Camp David Accords is Menachem Begin and the Jimmy Carter, some deal that they had worked out, which turned out to be a disaster.
And then right through the modern times behind the scenes. You're talking to folks inside the government. You're talking to all your contacts, different agencies you were with. With the State Department, you were basically with them all. And now, clearly, people understand we have to act.
We had a counter coup, which was initiated several days ago by some of the people in 16 different organizations, as you mentioned.
I know Trump's already doing this, but when they're organizing violence and moving, and I can see they're moving with it behind the scenes, it's time for covert action, and it just has to happen. So if people kind of see InfoWars as a bellwether where the people sit, I'm just saying I think the president and the military has to do what it has to do at this point. I mean, it would be negligent to sit here at this point. It's over. And I've been on the phone with the Pentagon. I've been on the phone with the Patriots. I've been in, because, thank God the Army in the 50s.
And this is the whole QAnon narrative. Jones hyped up QAnon, and then he said he was going to expose QAnon, and then that never happened. This all ties in together with Flynn, with these psychological operations.
When they were trying to make us lose, when the CIA was trying to make us lose to North Korea and the Chinese, the Army got pissed then and created stay-behind networks in America.
Israel's working with
China.
And
see, I'm not one of those stay-behind networks. I just come from the same cloth as those people. And so I seamlessly merge right into it. And yes, I'll just tell you, we are a stay-behind network for America. It's the big secret. That's what we are. It's why they're after us. It's true. The stay-behind networks support me. I'm from a stay-behind network. Most of my family was in stay-behind networks.
The fact that you have become a very serious threat to the establishment has already been a very major accomplishment of the counter coup. And that's why our intelligence services works through this. And they're not using you. They're simply stating.
Sure, none of us are manipulating each other. We just see the same thing happening.
They were going to probably kill me or arrest me. And I was shown all the data transmissions, all the information. I was shown WikiLeaks, all of it, before it was even, they're going to subpoena me. They're coming after me right now.
And we decided that there was something we had to do in order to save the Republic. So we initiated a counter coup through Julian Assange, who's been very brave and really quite formidable in his ability to come forth and provide all the necessary emails that we gave to him.
Okay, I played that already. I'll link this whole thing below so you guys can share it. And I can't wait to see when... Oh, he might have sent me a DM already. When Bergie sees that video, I hope I can talk to him about all of this. Now, look at Steve Buchenek's background here. This is something he shared from his website. Listen to this connection, this pedigree.
For those of you who don't know me, I am Jewish. I came out of the diaspora. I basically am related to Rambam, and I was... my family was involved with Begin and Jabotinsky. For those of you
Begin, Menachem Begin, from the Likud party, when the Likud party got into power, the Irgun terrorist Menachem Begin that blew up the King David Hotel and was a proud terrorist. That's who he worked with. And his family, the Ramban, he's related to the Ramban. That's Maimonides, one of the greatest their most famous rabbis, especially with Chabad Lubavitch.
Who don't know me, I am Jewish. I came out of the diaspora. I basically am related to Rambam, and I was involved with, my family was involved with Begin and Jabotinsky. For those of
I challenge Buchenek to come on and have a debate.
My rabbi, and it turns out to,
here we go, another one. But wait, there's more.
My rabbi, and it turns out to be a family member, Soloveitchik, who said, in order to be a good Jew or a good human, you have to follow the righteous way and avoid evil. My rabbi, and it turns out to be a family member.
So he's related to Ramban, Maimonides, and he's got another rabbi family member. Here is Maurice Pinet shared the origin of the Buchenek family, Yiddish royalty. Lots of very connected with all of this. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but you can Jewish Gen, Kazan, Buchenek family. You could probably search it and find it there. Now we have also Jerome Corsi, Council for National Policy. Watch this. This is where he says that Jerome Corsi, who he used to work for WorldNet Daily, huge Zionist media outlet, says that he got a text message from above Israeli intelligence, and he was just talking with the cybersecurity companies, the same people we're talking about, and he was investigated with the Mueller investigation. There's declassified emails with him and Stone colluding with high-level Israelis. It's all here.
We have breaking exclusive news from Dr. Jerome Corsi and his extensive connections in the Middle East, where he served as an advisor to the State Department and more, in a lot of classified areas we can't get into. He has major breaking news exclusive right now. Dr. Corsi, thanks for giving InfoWars the exclusive.
Well, Alex, it's great. I'm actually today in Nashville, Tennessee, and working with a really important cybersecurity company, and I just got text from top intelligence in Israel. Israel has nominated Donald Trump for the 2017 Peace Prize. He was nominated last year. There's about 200 nominations, but this is in advance of Netanyahu, Prime Minister Netanyahu's visit with Trump, which is coming up in the next few days. And Israel has decided to make this nomination basically on the decision to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and the fact that Donald Trump has had the courage of his convictions. Again, another promise in the campaign being fulfilled, taking, I think, an historic, maybe even biblical step to legitimate the state of Israel.
Taking a biblical step by keeping his campaign promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem, a biblical step. Like, this guy is a fanatical Zionist. End Times, CMP, Council for National Policy, connected. That was the CMP, founded by Tim LaHaye, the author of the Left Behind Tribulation Rapture series, the End Time fanatic who said the war with Iraq was fulfilling prophecy.
Israel, and the way I read the Bible basically says those who help Israel, God helps, and Donald Trump's on the right side here.
Well, certainly providence that he invoked during the inaugural speech is with our republic. And of course, England began to help the Jews when they were being persecuted going back 1,000 years ago in Europe. And of course, it's been known since then. That's why England had so much great providence.
Do you hear Jones right now? The whole Christian Zionist mentality that if you curse Israel, you'll be cursed. If you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. He just said, oh, everybody knows that England helped save the Jews. They were righteous Gentiles. They were Noahides. This is the Noahide. Well, I don't know if they were Noahides, but this is the Noahide type of thing that you help the Jews. You're a righteous Gentile. And that's why England was blessed and had providence, because they helped the Jews.
And also, of course, the Christian faith and Christ being number one, but that covenant has clearly been passed on, not just to all the Gentiles of the world through Christ, but particularly to England and the United States. Historians, even people that are anti-Western, have marveled that the United States of America has a special providence, Dr. Corsi.
He says America and England are special providence for helping Israel. And then he says he's not a Zionist.
Yes, well, even while we're talking, I mean, Israel, I just got another text message. I said we were going to break the news on Alex Jones' InfoWars broadcast. They said one word. They said, great. They're thrilled we're going to break the news on Alex Jones' InfoWars.
high level above Israeli intelligence, above Mossad, says, great, break the news on InfoWars, break this disinfo that Trump was getting the Peace Prize that he never got for moving the embassy. And this is who he hired.
And that comes directly from a source who's really above Mossad and the intelligence structure in Israel.
Yeah, so folks are really getting things raw here on air now.
Yeah, and so this is really, I mean, this is coming in as we're talking.
Yeah, so folks are really getting things raw here on air now.
Yeah, you're getting the above Israeli Mossad propaganda. Okay, and then now we also have Alex Jones visited by Mossad agent.
I'm telling you, that's the weirdness. And then I had this Mossad agent, who's one of the top guys in the country, whose cover is writing for a major magazine. And he gets there, and I go, I know this is really a visit from the Mossad. He goes, well, I'm sure, but well, how'd you know that? I'm not really doing an article. I just want to see what you're planning to do to Israel. And I'm just like, I'm not against Israel. I'm not against anybody. I'm against World War III. And so...
You're against
and I have this conversation. I go, look, I know not just Israel was involved in 9/11. I know a bunch of countries were. I think it's wrong that false flags are carried out. And as long as he knew it wasn't personal, he just ran off, you know. And then I had MI6 show up. And all.
So Mossad came and visited him. He's not going to tell us who this undercover Mossad agent that's posing as a journalist is, but he told him, hey, stop blaming Israel for 9/11. Spread the blame to the Saudis, which he eventually did. And now here's one more. Here is Alex Jones. Rothschilds trying to want to give wealth back to the people.
Saying Rothschilds are, you're saying Rothschilds are backing Trump versus the eugenics-based Rockefellers?
Exactly. If you kind of look at the people behind...
I got told that my CIA sources 3 years ago, they said, oh, you're backing the Rothschilds. Watch what they're about to do. They're going to try to actually give wealth back to the people, not because they're even good. They don't want a total worldwide bloodbath.
It's just that this time their interests coincide with our interests. Because, again, behind...
So you're saying Rothschilds
His CIA source told him that watch what the Rothschilds are going to do. They're going to give wealth back to the people.
Look at the people behind.
I got told that my CIA sources 3 years ago. They said, oh, you're backing the Rothschilds. Watch what they're about to do. They're going to try to actually give wealth back to the people, not because they're even good. They don't want a total worldwide bloodbath.
It's just that this time they're...
That's funny. I see in the comments. Yeah, Jerome Corsi has connections with the CMP and Rockefellers as well. Okay, so all these are on InfoWars Exposed, my playlist on my channel. Let's see. Now we have redacted FBI documents, hints at Israeli efforts to help Trump in 2016 campaign. Trump confidant Roger Stone being told by a Jerusalem contact, quote, Trump is going to be defeated unless we intervene. We have critical intel. The WikiLeaks documents. The key is in your hands. Trump campaign through Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi. Jerome Corsi is the one who supposedly told Alex Jones that Trump is for real and he's the real deal. And I've got all the clips of Jones saying all of that. They were in contact with one or more apparently well-connected Israelis at the height of the 2016 U.S. presidential campaign, one of whom warned Stone that Trump was, quote, going to be defeated unless we intervene, and promised, quote, we have critical intel. The exchange between Stone and this Jerusalem-based contact appears in FBI documents made public on Tuesday. They declassified the name of the Israeli agent who they were communicating with, but it was a, quote, a minister without portfolio in the cabinet dealing with issues concerning defense and foreign affairs. The prime minister and the prime minister in all of these references, the names and countries of the minister and prime minister are redacted. Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi were communicating. Corsi told Stone that they needed to meet with the redacted Israeli name to determine, quote, what, if anything, Israel plans to do in October for their October surprise. Remember, Jerome Corsi was heavily pushing QAnon too early on? Here's what the email said, August 12th, 2016, a few months before the election. Quote, from Israeli name redacted, Roger, hello from Jerusalem. Any progress? He is going to be defeated unless we intervene. They want to talk about collusion. They want to talk about election meddling. This was not even covered in American mainstream media, only Jewish press. They said, we have critical intel The key is in your hands. Back in the U.S. next week. How is your pneumonia? Thank you. Roger Stone, Jerome Corsi. Bergie needs to see this too. I think I sent that over to him already. Okay, I wanted to show one more thing now. Let's check the DMs real quick. Okay, we have, this is what I was talking about earlier. John Swin, the Facebook connection that Bergie was talking about here. Business Insider, Roger Stone accounts Russia, WikiLeaks, Facebook. So look at these graphics here from Expose the Enemy. We've got the Harvard Facebook network, Zuckerberg, Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, Joel Kaplan with Facebook. Harvard Network, Larry Summers, Rothschild, Epstein. Remember Epstein had an office there? Alan Dershowitz, lawyer from Harvard, Les Wexner, Shapiro, Steve Bannon, Peter Thiel's up in all this, Mark Zuckerberg. Mercer Rosenwald Network behind Trump, Robert Mercer, funds, Cambridge Analytica. Renaissance Technologies, Mercer Family Funds, Gatestone Institute, Council for National Policy, John Bolton, Nina Rosenwald, Pamela Geller, Frank Gaffney, David Horowitz. All of this Zionist network. The Lauder Finkelstein network. We're talking Arthur Finkelstein and Birnbaum, Paul Manafort. I'm going to put this link for you guys to zoom in and read up close. Ronald Lauder, World Jewish Congress, Roger Stone. This is the Zio network. Let's put this. You guys can save this and watch it. Bookmark it and watch it later if you're on Twitter from Expose the Enemy. Now we're moving on a little bit more on Steve Buchenek's propaganda and other news. I got one other thing. This is from a friend, a follower on Twitter. Just wanted to show this real quick because I think this comes up. This is Unconventional Warfare. Army 2008 spells out how social media will be utilized for the agenda. I remember seeing a statistic that in 2016, leading up to the election, that there was like, I think it was 25% or a third of all the activity on Twitter was from bots and artificial. Like, these are social engineers. They can manipulate perception, influence public opinion. And, you know, with the Smith-Mundt Act being changed, Army Special Operations Forces Unconventional Warfare. There's a war on your mind. Mind wars. Okay. All right. Next story. Times of Israel. Netanyahu to United Arab Emirates TV on annexation. Top priority now is expanding circle of peace. Netanyahu the peacemaker. Will he fill the role of Moshiach ben Joseph? Pretending like, oh, you know, we don't want to annex anymore. We want peace. Steve Buchenek, who's always promoting Amazing Polly, who pushes Q, and he says, great interview with Jared Kushner. He has been critical in the past, but listen to his wisdom. Just like in the InfoWars Exposed playlist, I have a whole compilation of Alex Jones shilling shamelessly for Netanyahu and for Kushner. He says, Kushner's wisdom. He says he spent 3 years to get Israel and the UAE to have a peace deal. What is our American representatives spending so much time and influence to put together deals between Israel and other countries? Do they not have other priorities in America to take over first? He also says, oh, Trump and him moving the embassy was such a great move, and he kept his campaign promise. It's like, we don't give a D about this embassy and your temple ambitions and your obsession with Jerusalem. Here's Steve Buchenek's video. Opus 232, Peace in the Middle East, a family affair. So Steve Buchenek will expose aspects of 9/11. He will criticize some Jews and Jewish power, but he always spins it. He gives you some truth with the poison pill. That's how it's controlled opposition. That's how it's psychological operations. And he spins it that, oh, Kushner's good and Trump is good, and they're fighting all of this.
Hi, this is Dr. Buchenek, and today I want to congratulate President Trump, Jared Kushner, Bibi Netanyahu. As most of you know now, There has been a formal agreement between the United Arab Emirates and Israel to have coordination on the economic, political, psychological, and all other types of activities. This is a landmark agreement because this is the third agreement that we've had since Camp David, which was 76, and I was involved with it with Jimmy Carter, and then 96, we had an agreement with Jordan, and now we have an agreement with UAE. What is UAE and who is UAE? The UAE is a compilation of 7 little small...
So he's praising Jared Kushner for this. UAE and Israel were already secret allies. They're just going public with it now. I exposed that in my past video. It's up on BitChute. I wasn't able to stream it on YouTube. But here, I have got something else here about... This is his video, Mossad-Epstein Connection.
Totally devoid of understanding what happened to us in the Holocaust.
Oops, wrong clip. Here we go.
What we have now is a real problem with Israel. And Israel has been placed on notice because our ambassador, the Jewish ambassador there, as well as Kushner, have made a very clear statement. Israel, you're on notice.
This is the disinfo. This is where they spin the disinfo. Jared Kushner is telling Israel that they're on notice. Jared Kushner's standing up to Netanyahu and Chabad Lubavitch in Israel. Just laughable. It's pathetic.
If you do not make a peace treaty with the Palestinians, there will be more serious repercussions than you imagine. The beginning of the takedown of your Mossad operatives, who were all...
Jared Kushner's going to take down Mossad, guys.
All present, and we will put them in prison, is just the beginning of what we can do to the future of Israel. Now, as a Jew, I am not proud what American Jews have done. For the most part, I find them to be arrogant, ignorant, totally devoid of any world culture.
So this is what he always does. He spins it. Jared Kushner and Trump are still good. I've seen it time and time again, him doing this stuff. Okay, shrink that down. And we're about to wrap it up here. Thanks, everybody, for watching. NoMoreNews.org if you guys want to get in contact or support. He praises the deal. Israel is basically setting up their Zionist New World Order Belt and Road Initiative with China, advanced technology. They want to, this Shadowgate documentary talked about how they are using all of this chaos with their data analytics, that they're able to cause it and control it, and they're trying to get rid of the police so they can usher in the drones and the robots and the AI on the streets. Kushner says, we won't consent to annexation, quote, for some time. Israel won't annex without our approval. So they're playing good cop right now. I did a whole video on the Kushner-Netanyahu peace plan scam when it was first announced. I'll put that link down below as well. It's difficult to find. It's a few months back, and it doesn't come up even if you search it in YouTube with the exact title. Now here's some other news. Michael Cohen said he lied to First Lady Melania Trump to cover up her husband's sexual infidelities, and that Trump asked him with creating a secret back channel to Russian President Vladimir Putin in the new book coming out. Michael Cohen squeals in new book. He says Trump colluded with Russia. I hope he says something about Israel. And he calls Trump a cheat, a liar, a fraud, a bully, a racist, a predator, and a con man. Says he will never leave office peacefully. Trump, he says in the new book, Trump worked with Russia to win the 2016 presidential election. Yes, he worked with Russia, and more so Israel, the Soviet Israel, if you will, the Kosher Nostra, the Tel Aviv, Moscow, New York triangle. Trump worked to get close to Russian President Vladimir Putin and his courtier, corrupt billionaire oligarchs. Trump lied when he told the American public he had no dealings in Russia because Cohen personally oversaw Trump's efforts to secure a major real estate deal in Moscow during the campaign. Trump had been visiting Soviet Union since back in the 80s. He says deals with corrupt officials from the former Soviet Union and that Trump conducts himself like a mob boss. Well, he's a made man. He was He was in this network with Roy Cohn and with his father before him. Trump's dad was friends with Netanyahu in the early 80s. He invested into Israeli bonds. Israeli bonds, which funded Israeli bombs. He donated land for a synagogue as well, and donated to Jewish causes. Trump's brother, who just died, or maybe the one that was alcoholic, was in a Jewish fraternity in college. In the early 80s, Trump won the Tree of Life Award from the Jewish National Fund, which was the Zionist organization founded at the World Zionist Congress by the father of modern Zionism, Theodor Herzl. Trump says, "This award is everything that I represent." I did a whole video on that too. It's in the Zionist Expose playlist. This was reported here. Trump's associate boasted that Moscow business deal will get Donald elected. Quote, "Our boy can become president of the USA, and we can engineer it. I will get all of Putin's team to buy in on this. I will manage this process." And this is the network that connects Putin and Netanyahu, Chabad Lubavitch, with Jared Kushner is involved. This is the network here. Russian Mafia. Chabad-linked Trump business partner and advisor Felix Sater. Trump picked Mafia-linked stock fraud felon as a senior advisor. And that is Felix Sater, who got Man of the Year at Chabad Port Washington. This is his own YouTube channel. He had 52 subscribers. Felix Sater, Man of the Year, senior advisor to Donald Trump, speaking at the Chabad Port Washington. Businessman says Trump sent him to Russia to look after his kids, and that's where Ivanka arranged for Ivanka to sit in Putin's private chair during a trip to Moscow. That was Felix Sater that did that. Cohen, Drudge, and Kushner. Michael Cohen levels new allegation, claims he worked to rig online polls at Trump's direction. Michael Cohen, Wall Street Journal, well, that's owned by Rupert Murdoch, right? Fox News owner, is in Epstein's Black Book, who's friends with Roy Cohn going back decades, in Genie Energy cabal with the Rothschilds that are drilling in the Golan Heights. Cohen hired IT firm to rig early CNBC and Drudge polls to favor Trump. Matt Drudge, Jared Kushner makes his mentor makes daily phone calls. This was reported with Rupert Murdoch, the owner of Fox News, of News Corp. And Jared Kushner and Ivanka were set up by Rupert Murdoch's ex-wife. It gets so weird. Rupert Murdoch's ex-wife dated Putin. I mean, Putin and Murdoch's ex dating. There's other ones too. Could it be that Vladimir Putin and Wendy Dang, she's Chinese, are in love? And then what was I going to say? Oh yeah, Jared, because Jared, Ivanka, Wendy Dang, Jared Kushner initially broke up with Ivanka. She wasn't Jewish and his family didn't approve. And I'm looking for it right now. Here's a photo of them together. Oops, that's the wrong one. There's the photo. Ivanka, Wendy Dang, Rupert Murdoch's ex-wife. She's the one that set them up together. Where does it say? I can't find it. You guys know. You can quote me on it. She's the one that set them up on a yacht. She invited them both on a yacht. Michael Cohen, Trump's lawyer and Jewish wingman, eyed in the Russian probe. And then Jared Kushner had an instant pipeline to Drudge. Drudge gravitated toward Kushner because of his proximity to power. Inside the campaign, there was a nickname for Matt Drudge. They called him Lady Drudge. It's rumored that Drudge is gay. Drudge essentially began acting as Jared Kushner's publicist. Remember, it's Matt Drudge who largely helped promote Alex Jones and make him a household name and give him legitimacy when he was linking to him all the time. All right. I want to skip that because we're going to wrap it up. Facebook algorithm. Okay, we'll cover this in another video. We'll show this. It's quick. USA Today. Defeat COVID-19 by requiring vaccination for all. It's not un-American. It's patriotic. Mandatory vaccinations are patriotic, according to USA Today. I don't think so. And I'm just going to have to cover all of these in the next video. This one is got to be, the Fed says it's developing an experimental digital currency. Here comes the one world currency. And that's all we're going to do. We're all going to cover today. We're going to wrap it up. Thanks everybody for watching. Let me know what you guys think. Comment below. Like, share, subscribe. Try to share this to Bergie. I want him to see all this information. Let him know that he was right. His intuition was right about Alex Jones and his mind wars, psychological operations. Let him know that Trump is not a good guy and he's not being set up. He's deeply involved in all of this. NoMoreNews.org. If you guys want to get in contact or donate, I'm only here because of your support. I wouldn't be here without you. Every dollar helps. Support independent media if you value the content. Get contact page, email for the newsletter. Got new t-shirts for sale. They'll be here soon. Thanks to all the mods. Thanks for everybody joining me. Pretty amazing stuff. Gonna have to be tuning in to Alex Jones again, even though how painful it is, because stuff is going down. I gotta follow how all of this is gonna pan out, and I really look forward to hopefully talking to Bergie here about all of this. Hope to have him on the show soon. Anyway, let me empty out the chest. Thanks for everybody watching on DLive. DLive and BitChute are the alternative, the backups to YouTube. If I get it, I better be a good goy, because if I get another strike, it's a 2-week ban. And so there's DLive, Patreon, BitChute, No More News 2, t-shirts. Things are really getting crazy. It's only going to heat up from here. Check out some of the videos you missed. If you thought, oh, where's Adam? I was gone all week. Did I empty the chest already? Distribute rewards. Distributing the rewards on DLive. You guys thought I was gone all week. It was because I was suspended for a week. So check out the videos you missed. Yesterday I did a interview with Gilad Otzman on No More News 2. I'm going to upload that to BitChute as well. And I did another 1 or 2 streams throughout the week that are up on BitChute. You got to get off YouTube. You got to get off. Well, don't get off, but don't just depend on YouTube. Don't depend on Twitter and social media. You have to bookmark websites. Subscribe and sign up to BitChute and DLive and the alternatives. All right, guys, that is all. Thank you so much for watching. See you guys again soon.